It didn't start with confessions. It didn't start with late-night phone calls or lipstick stains or any of the things you'd expect. No, it started with a hug. A single hug, the kind that drags a little too long, holds a little too close, and says far too much in its silence. It was our 10-year high school reunion, hosted at a 2.5-star hotel off I-71 near Worthington, Ohio. The kind of place that still had brown carpet in the hallways and a broken ice machine on every other floor. We weren't expecting glamour, just a little nostalgia, some drinks, and a few laughs with old classmates we barely remembered. Melanie was excited. That should have been a good sign, but in hindsight, it wasn't. She wasn't just excited, she was electric, buzzing in a way I hadn't seen in years. I catch her checking her phone constantly in the days leading up to the event, reapplying makeup that didn't need fixing, asking me what I was going to wear like it really mattered. Should I wear the blue or the green? She asked the night before, holding up 2 dresses. Both looked amazing on her. I told her so. She gave a soft smile. Yeah, but which one's more memorable? I laughed. Memorable for who? She didn't answer, just turned back to the mirror, humming. The day of the reunion, she seemed more like a teenager than the woman I'd built a life with. I was a little annoyed, honestly. She spent over an hour getting ready while I sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through ESPN. I remember watching her fuss with her eyeliner in the mirror, tilting her head like a model in a perfume ad. I told her she looked great. She barely heard me. We arrived around 7:30. The lobby was filled with the usual reunion crowd. Forced smiles, bad suits, familiar faces aged by life. At the check-in table, we grabbed our name tags. I noticed Melanie had already peeled the sticker off hers and stuck it in her purse, and walked toward the banquet room, where a DJ was playing Mr. Brightside a little too loud for a crowd with mortgages and back pain. The moment we walked through the door, I felt her change. Melanie let go of my hand. She didn't say a word, just slipped away from me, eyes scanning the crowd like a drone locking onto a target. Then she saw him. At the time, I didn't know his name, just that he had a strong jaw, too perfect hair, and the kind of smile that looked practiced. He stood near the makeshift bar, laughing with a small group. When he saw her, his entire posture shifted. He straightened. His smile changed. It wasn't casual, it was expectant. Melanie walked straight to him like she'd been rehearsing the moment. And then came the hug. Not a casual hug. Not the side hug or hey it's been years kind of hug. No, this one was full body. Deep, int asterisk mate. His arms wrapped low, and hers pulled tight like she was trying to climb inside him. She closed her eyes. Her face pressed into his shoulder. It lasted maybe 4 or 5 seconds, but that's a long time to stand still while your wife hugs another man like you don't exist. People noticed. I noticed, and she didn't look back at me. Not once. Eventually, she stepped back, laughing, brushing hair behind her ear like a nervous schoolgirl. Still no glance my way. I stood maybe 20 feet behind her, watching this whole scene unfold like I was in the audience of my own life. After a moment, I walked up, half expecting her to turn and acknowledge me. She didn't. It was him who noticed first. "Hey," he said, extending a hand toward me, the handshake of a man too used to hiding things behind charm. "You must be Melanie's husband." I took his hand. It was warm, firm, confident. "Yeah, and you are?" "Chase," he said. "We go way back." Melanie finally turned to me. Her expression was flat. "Chase was on yearbook with me," she said, as if that explained everything. I nodded slowly. "Right, the infamous yearbook committee. How could I forget?" She laughed, but there was tension in it. She glanced around quickly. "I'm gonna grab a drink. You want anything?" "No," I said. She walked off. Not once did she look back. Chase sipped his beer and followed her with his eyes. "She was always the life of the party," he said. I didn't respond, just turned and walked toward the buffet table like I was starving. That whole night, she barely stood near me. I'd find her at the bar, laughing with Chase. I tried to make eye contact. She'd avoid it. At one point, I was talking to someone I used to play baseball with, and I caught them dancing. It wasn't romantic, not quite, but her body language said enough. I confronted her in the parking lot. We had just reached the car. She tossed her heels into the back seat, sitting barefoot for a moment while I stared at the wheel in silence. "That was some hug," I said finally. She looked at me, confused. "What?" "Chase," I said. "That hug back there. That was something." She rolled her eyes. "Are you seriously jealous right now?" "I'm seriously watching," I said. "I watched you wrap yourself around him like I wasn't even in the building." She sighed. "God, you're tired. You've been overworked all month. Can't we just have one night where you're not picking everything apart?" "I'm not picking. I'm asking." "It's called nostalgia, Dave," she said, suddenly harsh. "We were close in high school. It was just a hug. You need to stop being so insecure." I clenched the steering wheel. It didn't feel like just a hug. "Oh my God," she muttered, looking out the window. "This is so like you. You always do this, read too much into everything, act like I'm some kind of criminal because I smiled at someone." "I never said that," I replied. "But if the roles were reversed, if I hugged a woman like that in front of you, you wouldn't be so quick to laugh it off." Silence. She didn't say anything for a while, just stared at the parking lot light flickering outside her window. "You're making something out of nothing," she said finally. "And it's exhausting." The next few days, she acted like nothing had happened, like we hadn't fought in the car, like she hadn't spent half the night draped over another man. She kept using that word, nostalgia. She said I was projecting, that I was too tense, that I didn't get it because I didn't have close friends in high school like she did. She never once said, "I'm sorry, but I started seeing things differently after that night." Or maybe I started seeing them clearly for the first time. Little things. The way she kept her phone face down. The way she turned her body away from me on the couch when she texted. The change in her password. When I asked why, she said it was for privacy, because she kept work stuff on there. I brushed those things off at first. But the hug, that hug, it stayed with me. Like a mosquito bite you keep scratching even when you know you shouldn't. It was the moment I stopped assuming everything was fine. The moment I started paying attention. And I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of the end. After the reunion, I couldn't unsee it. That hug played on repeat in my head. Not just the length of it or how tightly she clung to him, but the way she vanished into someone else's arms without thinking twice about mine. Once I noticed that, I started noticing everything else. And when things don't add up, you start looking for the common denominator. It was Melanie. In the weeks that followed, she acted like nothing had happened. She joked about the reunion, posted photos online, a group selfie here, a blurry sh*t of the DJ there. She even tagged me in one. I didn't smile in it. I remember that clearly. My arm was around her, but my body felt stiff, disconnected. "You looked miserable," she said when she saw the photo. "Maybe I was," I replied. She rolled her eyes. "You can't hold a grudge over one hug, Dave." But it wasn't just a hug anymore. That was just the spark. The rest had been building for a while. I just hadn't let myself connect the dots. Melanie started taking more business trips. At least that's what she called them. At first, it was 1 or 2 a quarter. Then suddenly it was every other month. Then twice in the same month. They always popped up fast, with little warning, and no real detail. "Where this time?" I'd ask, trying to keep my tone even. "Indianapolis," she'd say, or Cincinnati. Sometimes Columbus again, team retreat. She always left on Fridays, returned on Sundays. Always by Uber. Always with a single overnight bag. I asked once if I could drop her off. She declined. "It's fine," she said. "No need to make a production out of it." And then the phone habit started. Melanie used to be careless with her phone. Left it on the counter, unlocked. I knew her password, not because she gave it to me, but because she never needed to hide anything. That changed around late spring. She set a new passcode, Face ID only. The first time I noticed, we were watching TV and a notification popped up. She immediately picked it up, tapped quickly, then held it tightly in her lap like it was a newborn. "Who was that?" I asked. She shrugged. "Work stuff." It became a script. Every buzz, Every ping, work, or nothing, or don't worry about it. I wasn't the paranoid type, but I wasn't blind either. One night I tested her. I waited until she left her phone on the charger in the bathroom and went to fold laundry. I opened it, locked. Face ID. I brought it out to her. "You changed your lock screen," I said. She barely looked up. "Yeah, it's more secure." "From who?" "From everyone. Even me." She paused, then said, "It's not personal, Dave. You always overreact to stuff. I don't want fights over things that don't matter." I wanted to argue, but the truth was it did matter. Not because I wanted to spy on her, but because suddenly I wasn't allowed in. She was slipping into a different rhythm, one that didn't include me. The next shift was even more subtle, and maybe that's what made it worse. She stopped talking as much. We used to chat about everything, what happened at work, what show we'd binge next, random trivia she picked up online. Now she barely said anything unless I asked, "How was your day?" "Fine. Busy. Kind of." "Anything interesting happen?" "Not really." That was it. Our dinner table conversations became background noise. And the way she looked at me, well, she didn't. Not the same way. Not with warmth. Not with that spark that used to live in her eyes. When she did look, it was often with irritation. Like I was interrupting something more important that she kept inside her head. She also started going out more. She'd claim it was a coworker's birthday, a networking mixer, a casual girls' night. I believed the first couple. Then I noticed the pattern. She never invited me. She got dressed up, sprayed her best perfume, the one she used to save for our date nights, and left in a hurry. She always came back late, sometimes past midnight. Always claimed her phone died or she lost track of time. The next morning, she was quiet. Like the nights took something from her, or gave her something she wasn't ready to share. The final straw, though, the thing that locked everything into place, was the weekend in June. She had told me she was heading to a retreat for her marketing firm, somewhere near Dayton. I asked for details. She got vague. Just a couple team-building things. Spa treatments. A break from the chaos. She left on Friday night. Kissed me on the cheek like she was clocking out. Didn't even say, "I love you." That Saturday afternoon, I came across a receipt in the laundry room. It had fallen from her gym bag when I picked it up to move it. The receipt was from a boutique hotel. Not a spa. Not a retreat center. A hotel about 60 miles in the opposite direction from where she said she'd be. There were 2 drinks on the bill. One listed as a whiskey. She never drinks whiskey. I called her that night. "Hey, how's Dayton?" She hesitated. "It's nice. Quiet. We did yoga and aromatherapy today." My stomach dropped. "That sounds relaxing." "It is. I needed this." I couldn't bring myself to ask why the receipt said otherwise. I didn't want to start the war just yet. I needed more than inconsistencies. I needed proof. And more than that, I needed certainty because a part of me still wanted to believe that I was wrong. But the signs kept multiplying. A man's sweater, navy, high-end, appeared on the back of our living room chair one morning. I asked where it came from. She said she borrowed it from a coworker because the office AC was too cold. But it smelled like cologne. Not mine. There were also the scents she carried home, not always the same. Some nights it was floral and unfamiliar. Other times it was a deeper musk. She claimed it was from perfume samples her coworkers passed around. Once, she said she bumped into someone wearing too much cologne at a client event. I kept a straight face, but my gut kept twisting tighter. Then there were the gaps, weird pockets of missing time. She'd tell me she'd be home by 8, but show up at 10. She'd say she ran into traffic or went to Target, but there'd be no bags, no explanation. She'd shower right away, almost obsessively. "You always come home and shower now," I pointed out once. She blinked. "What does that mean?" "Just something I've noticed. It's summer. It's hot. Is it a crime to want to be clean?" I dropped it, but I didn't forget it. Her routines shifted. She started leaving earlier for work, wearing more makeup, carrying herself differently. She took more calls outside on the back porch, whispered into her phone, laughed like someone was feeding her lines. And maybe the worst part? The way she touched me changed. There was a time when her touch was second nature. A hand on my shoulder while I cooked, her fingers playing with mine while we watched TV, the casual and asterisk macy of people who didn't have to think about love. But now it was forced, mechanical. She flinched when I leaned in, pulled away quicker, said she was tired, said she had a headache, or simply said nothing at all and turned her back to me in bed. At some point I stopped trying. But my brain didn't stop collecting. Every moment, every lie, every detail. Separately, they were explainable. Together, they were a map. And all roads pointed in one direction, away from me. I didn't discover the truth through a confession. There was no tearful breakdown. No moment where she finally cracked and admitted what she'd been hiding. The truth arrived quietly, without drama. And once it was in my hands, there was no way to put it back. It came to me through someone else's carelessness. 2 weeks after the reunion, I got a message from an old college acquaintance I hadn't spoken to in years. We weren't close, just friendly enough to exchange birthday wishes and the occasional comment on social media. The message was short and oddly formal. "Hey man, this might be nothing, but I figured you should see it." Attached was a photo. At first glance, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was taken indoors, under warm lighting, the kind you see in hotel lobbies. The angle was slightly tilted, like someone snapped it quickly without thinking much about framing. Then my eyes adjusted, and the details sharpened. Melanie was in the photo. She was standing near the front desk of a country hotel, her body turned slightly sideways, her head resting comfortably against someone's shoulder. A man's arm was wrapped around her waist, not stiff or awkward, but relaxed, familiar. Int asterisk mate. The man was Chase. There was no mistaking him. Same hair, same posture, same presence that had set off every alarm in my body at the reunion. In the photo, he wasn't smiling for the camera. He was smiling at her, and she was smiling back. Not the polite smile she used with strangers. Not the tired smile she gave me lately. This was soft, unguarded, the kind of smile people don't fake. I stared at the image for a long time before noticing the timestamp in the corner. 2 weeks earlier. The same weekend she had been on her Indianapolis work trip. I sat down hard at the kitchen table, the phone still in my hand. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't pounding or skipping beats like you see in movies. It was slow, heavy, like it had already accepted the outcome before my mind caught up. I wrote back immediately. "Where was this taken?" The reply came a minute later. "Hotel outside Bloomington. A friend of mine works events there. Said they checked in together." Together. That single word stripped away the last layer of denial I didn't realize I was still clinging to. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't misunderstanding or insecurity or me reading too much into things. This was documented reality. I didn't confront Melanie right away. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the phone at the wall or demand explanations. I sat there, alone in the quiet house, replaying every moment from the past year with new clarity. The late nights, the secrecy, the changed passwords, the business trips that never quite made sense. They all lined up now, clean and cruel. That evening, she came home like nothing was wrong. She set her bag down, kicked off her shoes, and asked if I wanted leftovers. Her voice was casual, comfortable, practiced. I watched her move around the kitchen, the woman I'd married, the woman I thought I knew, and realized how easy lying had become for her. I waited until she went to shower. Then I opened the photo again. I zoomed in, not because I needed more proof, but because my brain demanded confirmation. Her head was tilted toward him. His thumb rested just above her hip, a detail you don't notice unless you're close to someone, unless you're allowed to touch them there. When she came back into the bedroom, towel around her hair, I asked one question. "How was Indianapolis?" She didn't hesitate. "Busy, exhausting, glad to be home." I nodded. "Which hotel did you stay at?" That was the moment her rhythm broke. Just barely. A half-second pause. A blink too long. "I don't remember," she said. "The usual conference one." I didn't argue. I didn't push. I simply said, okay. That night, I slept on the couch. Not out of anger, out of distance. Something fundamental had shifted. The person beside me was no longer my wife in the way she had been. She was someone who had made choices without me, and for me, there was no coming back from that. The next morning, after she left for work, I printed the photo. I placed it in an envelope, and I knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next would not involve denial, bargaining, or hope. Only truth. Years passed before I heard her name again. Not casually. Not through friends or social media. It arrived the way most things do when they matter, unexpectedly, and at the worst possible time. I was living alone in Indiana by then, the divorce long finalized, the house quiet in a way that no longer felt temporary. Life had narrowed itself into routines. Work, sleep, repetition. I had stopped asking questions because I had stopped believing answers would change anything. Then one evening, just after sunset, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I remember thinking it was probably a delivery, or maybe a neighbor who needed something signed. When I opened the door and saw Melanie standing there, everything inside me locked up. She looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had been hollowed out from the inside. Her hair was pulled back without care. Her face stripped of the confidence that once came so easily to her. At her feet sat a duffel bag. Worn. Heavy. "I need to talk to you," she said. I didn't invite her in right away. I just stared. Years of anger, grief, and silence pressed against my chest at once. Finally, I stepped aside. She walked in like a stranger walking through a museum. Careful, reverent, afraid to touch anything. We sat at opposite ends of the living room. She didn't waste time. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She went straight to the truth, or at least the version of it she could no longer hide. "Chase is dead," she said. The words didn't register immediately. When they did, I felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just a dull acknowledgement, like learning about the weather. "Car accident," she continued. "Instant." She paused, waiting for a reaction. I gave her none. "He kept things," she said quietly. "From before. From after. Things that weren't his to keep." She reached for the duffel bag and unzipped it. Inside were fragments of my past. Old notebooks, personal letters, drafts of emails I never sent, a watch I'd thought I lost during the divorce, pieces of my life that had disappeared without explanation. "He saved everything," she said. "He said he wanted proof that it mattered." I finally understood. Chase had been the constant, the one variable that never left the equation. As long as he was alive, the story could be controlled, edited, denied. But with him gone, there was no longer anyone to reinforce the lie. "He talked about you until the end," she said. "About what he took, about what he ruined." I didn't ask why she was telling me this now. I already knew. Death had removed the last witness capable of contradicting her. "There's more," she said. And that was when the ground finally gave way. She told me about another woman. About a pregnancy I was never told about. About decisions made without me that altered the shape of my life permanently. She spoke in flat sentences, stripped of emotion, as if saying it differently might break her. I listened without interrupting. By the time she finished, the silence between us felt infinite. "You didn't come here for forgiveness," I said. She shook her head. "I came because there's no one left to lie with." She left an hour later. Took nothing. Asked for nothing. And when the door closed behind her, I sat alone with the truth, finally complete. Not because someone chose honesty, but because time had made dishonesty impossible. I thought the worst was behind me. After Melanie's visit, after the duffel bag, after the photo and the silence and the endless string of betrayals. I truly believed that was the end of it, that I had survived the fire and stepped out into the ash. I had rebuilt my life brick by brick, without asking for clarity or closure. But closure didn't need my permission. Came anyway, and it didn't come gently. 2 weeks after Melanie left, I received a letter in the mail. It didn't come in a manila envelope or some official court-stamped packet. It came in a plain white envelope, hand-addressed, no return name, just a postmark from Chicago. I assumed it was junk. I almost tossed it, but something made me stop. Maybe it was the handwriting. I recognized it somehow, even though I didn't know how I could. Inside was a single page, folded neatly, no signature. The first sentence read, "I think you might be my father." The rest of the letter was cautious, hesitant, written by someone who didn't know where to begin. She said her name was Emma. She said her mother was someone I didn't recognize at first. A name that meant nothing until I read it a second time and remembered it from a blurry night 15 years earlier, back when Melanie and I were separated briefly during a trial split. A name that had vanished into my past like a wrong turn I never fully retraced. Emma explained that she didn't grow up knowing who her biological father was. Her mother had passed away 2 years ago, and only recently had she found a box of letters and photos that pointed her in my direction. She said she wasn't looking for money, or even a relationship. She just wanted truth. I sat in the kitchen with the letter in my hand for over an hour. I didn't move. I didn't drink the coffee I'd made. I didn't even blink. It felt like. Eventually, I reached for my laptop and began looking into her. Emma Davis, 17 years old, high school senior, Chicago. Her social media was private, but there were glimpses, tagged photos, comments. She looked like her mother. But the more I stared at her face, the more I saw my own. My eyes, my chin, even the way her smile leaned a little higher on the left side. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. I sat with it for a few days, then reached out to her through the email address she'd left at the bottom of the letter. I told her I received it, that I had questions, that if she was serious about wanting to know the truth, I was open to finding it, whatever it turned out to be. She replied that same day. We set up a call. It was short, awkward. She was smart, well-spoken, guarded. She didn't ask for anything beyond what she'd written in the letter, but I could tell this wasn't some impulsive decision. She'd been thinking about it for a long time, maybe years. We agreed to a DNA test. Quietly, discreetly. I didn't tell Melanie. I didn't tell my siblings. I didn't tell my closest friends. Just me and Emma. The results came 2 weeks later. 997% match. Emma Davis was my daughter. For 17 years, I had been someone else's ghost. She had grown up believing her father was unknown, or gone, or unwilling. She had been told things, not directly, but through implication, through omission, through the absence of facts, that led her to believe I had walked away before she was even born. And the part that broke me wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the years I'd lost. It was the fact that I might have never known. If Chase hadn't died, if Melanie hadn't come with that bag, if Emma hadn't found those letters, I wouldn't have known I had a daughter. I wouldn't have known she existed. The betrayal I'd felt with Melanie suddenly felt smaller, more diluted, like a symptom of something much bigger. She hadn't just lied to me during our marriage. She had conspired to keep an entire person from me. A child. My child. And for what? Because it was inconvenient? Because Chase was easier to keep around if I stayed blind? I don't know. Maybe she thought she was protecting someone. Maybe herself. Maybe Emma. But there is no universe in which what she did was forgivable. I reached out to Emma again. Told her the results had come back. That it was confirmed. That I didn't want to barge into her life, but I would show up if she wanted me to, or stay away if that's what she preferred. Her reply came the next morning. I want to meet, but not like a reunion. I want facts, no sugarcoating. Just tell me everything. So I did. We arranged to meet in a small cafe halfway between us. She was in the middle of treatment. That's something she told me only once we confirmed everything. Emma had been diagnosed with leukemia the year before. It was being managed, but she was in and out of hospitals. I offered to come to her. She agreed. I didn't know what I expected that day. Maybe a hug, maybe tears, maybe hostility. But what I got was something more honest. She was polite, measured. She wore a gray beanie that covered most of her head, her eyes focused, skeptical. She extended her hand when she introduced herself. No theatrics, no melodrama, and when we sat down, she didn't waste time. "What happened?" she asked. So I told her. Everything. I didn't make excuses. I didn't try to rewrite history. I told her about the night I met her mother, about the separation from Melanie, about the fact that I never knew her mother was pregnant, that I had no idea she existed. She didn't react much, just nodded, took notes on her phone. "This is going to sound cold," she said, "but I don't know how to feel yet. I don't know if I'm mad at you. I don't know if I want anything from you." "I understand," I said. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just trying to build a timeline," she said. "Understand who I am, and who I'm not." I admired that. Her maturity, her control, her unwillingness to be pulled into drama. We didn't talk long that day, maybe 45 minutes. But by the end of it, we had exchanged phone numbers. She told me she might reach out again, that she was keeping her expectations low. "I've lived 17 years without a dad," she said. "I don't need one now, but maybe I'm open to knowing who he is." That stuck with me. Not forgiveness, not rejection, just space. And for now, that was enough. The truth hadn't just reshaped my past. It had created a path I didn't know I was missing. One that, against all odds, might still lead somewhere worth walking. Meeting Emma again wasn't emotional in the way people expect. There were no tearful embraces or sudden connections, just quiet tension, like walking through a room full of delicate glass. She was in a hospital gown, pale but composed, and 4 in her arm and a guarded look in her eyes. I brought coffee. She didn't drink it. Instead, she asked questions, direct, detailed, more like an interview than a reunion. I answered each one without embellishment. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain away the past. She didn't seem to want that. Eventually, she looked at me and said, "I don't know if I trust you, but I don't hate you either." That was the first time I let myself hope, not for forgiveness but for a future. One where the silence between us became something more than just distance. Months later, we drove to my hometown. I wasn't sure why Emma wanted to go. She said she needed context. She carried a notebook, documenting street names, details on old buildings, corners of my childhood I hadn't thought about in decades. She wasn't looking for nostalgia. She was building a sense of origin, of placement. And as we stood outside my old high school, she asked what I was like at 17. I told her the truth. Confused, restless, a little lost. She smiled. "So not much has changed," she said. That made me laugh. In that moment, I realized something simple but powerful. The affair took my marriage, the lies stole years, but it couldn't erase everything. This ending, the one that began with me disappearing at that reunion, gave way to something fragile but real, a story still being written,